Okay, let's unpack this.
So today we're diving into, well, one of the most unexpected pairings I've seen in modern research.
Right. The connection between uh, the peace you cultivate inside your own head,
Yeah. And the mathematical stability of the global economy, it sounds completely out there.
it really does. So, our mission for this deep dive is to see how these really personal moral choices
Things like your sense of inner peace, your ethics around consumption.
are actually measurable factors, not just in your own flourishing, but for the health of the entire system.
It's a huge idea.
And the sources we're looking at today are just, they feel like they're from completely different universes.
They really are. On one hand, you've got this deep psychological study.
Yeah, building a brand new scale to measure something as abstract as inner peace.
Mhm.
And it's drawing on what? Philosophy, theology?
All of it. And then, on the other hand, totally separate from that.
You have this Econ of Physics paper.
Right. Which is heavy. I mean, it's heavy stuff, complex mathematical modeling.
Using tools from physics, but for economics, and they're plugging in literal moral parameters into their equations. It's wild.
It is. But the big idea that, weaves these two completely different threads together.
From the soul to the spreadsheet.
Exactly. It's the same simple but really profound concept, moderation.
Whether you're looking inward at mental health or outward at global wealth, thriving requires an active choice to moderate and transcend those unhealthy materialistic desires.
And we're going to show you that the data, the hard science, actually confirms that ancient wisdom.
So let's start with that internal world. For decades, when social science looked at well-being, it was mostly focused on, well, hedonic factors, right?
Right. Happiness, pleasure, positive mood, life satisfaction.
Yeah.
If it feels good, if it makes you happy, it gets measured.
And that's not unimportant, obviously.
No, of course not, but it misses a really critical component. I mean, you look at philosophers, theologians across history, and they consistently stress that a truly good life isn't just about chasing pleasure.
It's about inner peace.
It's about inner peace, a stable, balanced disposition that lets you weather life's storms without, being completely swept away.
And that's the concept that's been kind of missing from modern flourishing research until now.
Exactly. So these researchers set out to actually measure it. They developed what they call the Inner Peace Scale, or IPS.
So how do they even define something like that? It's not just like chilling out.
No, it's not indifference or avoidance. It's not checking out. They define it as a calm, balanced mental state that's characterized by healthy acceptance and the absence of unhealthy grasping.
Okay, unhealthy grasping. I like that. They call it an engaged balance.
That's the key term. And to measure it, they broke it down into three distinct, though, interconnected dimensions.
All right, what's the first one?
The first is acceptance of loss.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It's huge. It's your skillful ability to acknowledge and accept the inevitable losses that just come with being human. Loss of youth, health, relationships.
The things we can't control. Okay, what's number two?
Number two is inner balance and calmness. This is more what people traditionally think of, that stable mental state that's quiet, clear, and gentle, no matter what's going on
It's
externally.
their unshakable core.
Pretty much. And then the third dimension. This is the one that really acts as the bridge to our whole economic discussion.
This must be the materialism one.
You got it. Transcendence of hedonism and materialism. It's the active avoidance of getting too fixated on temporary pleasures and, well, things.
And the researchers made a specific point about this one, right? Especially for us.
They did. They said it's particularly crucial to measure in consumeristic societies, where basically all the cultural messaging is constantly pushing you in the opposite direction.
It's fascinating just how cross-cultural this whole idea of inner peace is, though. It's not from just one tradition.
Not at all. I mean, you can find the same core concept everywhere. The Greek Stoics were aiming for apatheia.
Which means being without suffering or, like, debilitating passion.
Exactly. Then you've got Buddhism's concept of upekkha, or equanimity. In Judaism, it's menichat hanefesh, peace of mind.
And in Christianity, I'm thinking of St. Paul talking about being content in every situation, whether you're rich or poor.
That's it. That idea of being content regardless of external circumstances is the universal target here.
Okay, so they can define it, but does it actually work? I mean, does having this kind of inner peace translate into tangible mental health benefits?
It absolutely does. The data is really striking. The IPS scores showed strong negative correlations with all the usual suspects for mental health symptoms.
Like what?
Okay, so for example, inner peace was strongly negatively correlated with rumination. that obsessive cyclical worrying.
Just going over and over things in your head.
Right. And the correlation was R equals minus 0.58.
So for you listening, if you're not super familiar with stats, what does an R value like that minus 0.58 actually tell us?
It tells us it's a highly significant finding. Correlations go from -1 to +1. A value of negative 0.58 is a strong medium to large effect size.
So in plain English,
The higher your score on the inner peace scale, the substantially less likely you are to be stuck in those obsessive worry loops.
and it wasn't just rumination.
No, they found similar, strong negative correlations with generalized anxiety and depressive symptoms. I mean, the takeaway is clear. A peaceful mind, statistically, is a healthy mind.
And what about on the positive side?
Positively, the scores were associated with self-compassion. So people who are better at accepting loss and are less materialistic are also, kinder to themselves.
But the big question is, can you cultivate it? Or are some people just born this way?
That's the critical point. It is absolutely cultivable. First, they did a known groups analysis and found that people who prayed or meditated regularly scored a bit higher.
Okay, that makes sense. But the real clincher was the intervention study.
Yes, this was fantastic. They took a group of participants through a 6-week mindfulness meditation training.
And what happened?
They saw a substantial elevation in their IPS scores, especially on that inner balance and calmness factor. The effect size, D equals 0.63, tells you this is a meaningful, practical skill you can develop pretty quickly.
So it moves inner peace from being just a vague philosophical idea?
To a measurable, teachable skill.
Now, this is where the cultural stuff gets really interesting, because the research didn't just measure peace, it highlighted the cultural roadblocks to getting it.
Right, the cross-cultural comparison. They looked at students in the U.S. versus students in China.
And the U.S. sample scored significantly lower on 2 of the 3 dimensions. Let me guess.
Go for it.
Acceptance of loss and transcending hedonism and materialism.
You nailed it. And that second one is really key for our whole deep dive today.
It makes it kind of intuitive sense for a highly consumerist culture, but the variance was the really wild part.
It was. The U.S. sample showed more than double the variance on that transcending hedonism and materialism factor compared to the Chinese sample.
So what does that mean? We're all over the map on it.
Basically, yeah. The researchers suggest it's because in Western consumer culture, the constant messaging from media, from marketing, it actively promotes pleasure-seeking and instant gratification.
So if society is always telling you that more is better, your internal compass for what's enough is going to be scattered.
Exactly. Some people reject it, but many people just internalize it. And the pursuit of pleasure, when it's maximized as a cultural goal, seems to actively make cultivating inner peace a much harder, more conscious fight.
It forces you to see that your internal balance is constantly being undermined by an external economic message.
And that is the perfect pivot.
So that internal challenge of transcending materialism is clear. Now, let's take that exact same moral choice, the act of setting a limit on desire, and see what happens when economists plug it into a complex model of the entire global economy.
We are shifting gears completely here. We're moving from the individual psyche to the global ledger. And the problem they're trying to solve is, of course, wealth inequality.
Which everyone knows is a massive issue. The top 10% have, 76% of the world's wealth?
Something like that. And we measure this using the Gini index. When that index hits 0.4, it's considered a warning sign for serious social instability.
And the traditional solutions are either the free market or, the state steps in with taxes and redistribution.
Right. But there's this other school of thought from philosophy and anthropology that advocates for a human economy, one based not on coercion but on moral action, mutual aid, reciprocity.
And that's the thinking behind this econophysics model.
That's the intellectual engine. The researchers coupled a dynamic macro model, calculating capital, consumption, all that, with an interaction model that simulates business and voluntary redistribution between individuals.
Which lets them look at 2 things at once.
Exactly. They can track inequality, the Gini index, and also the overall median utility, which is basically a measure of well-being for the whole population.
But the really new, groundbreaking part is how they introduce moral behavior into this pure math world. They use 2 key thresholds.
These are the moral parameters. Let's start with the first one, the redistribution moral. They call it K-TH.
Okay, break that down for me.
Imagine every single person or business in the model makes a voluntary choice. They decide, anything I earn or have above this personal wealth level, this threshold, I will donate to those who have less.
So it's a voluntary wealth cap for sharing.
Precisely. If you lower that threshold, it means you have higher moral expectations for sharing. Now, I saw you pause there.
I was just thinking, how can a math model really capture something as human as morality? I mean, isn't it just imposing a rule?
It is imposing a rule, but it's a rule that mimics a moral disposition. It models the behavioral choice to share once you feel you have enough. It's the active decision not to hoard.
And the money goes to the poorest agents first.
Inversely proportional, so yes, the poorest get the most.
Okay, so that covers giving. What about taking? Or I guess not taking.
That brings us to the second parameter, the consumption moral, or CTH.
This one models thrift.
Exactly. It models personal moderation. If an agent's optimal long-term consumption goes above this set threshold, their consumption gets capped.
So instead of buying the third pair of shoes you don't need, you save or invest that capital instead. That internal choice is what CTH is modeling for the whole system.
That's it. It's the direct mathematical mirror of the IPS dimension, transcending hedonism and materialism.
And when they ran the simulations with these moral parameters, what did they find?
They found striking mathematical confirmation that balances everything. The model shows very clearly that extremes fail on both ends.
How so?
Well, on one side, if you have under-redistribution, so a high wealth threshold where almost no one shares, and waste, a high consumption threshold where spending is unlimited, inequality just explodes.
Okay, that sounds familiar. That looks a lot like many real-world economies.
It does, but here's the other side of it. What happens if you try to force too much equality? What if you set the redistribution threshold super low, so everyone has to give away almost everything?
You'd think that'd be good, right? Maximum equality?
You'd think. But if you push toward over-redistribution or extreme personal stinginess, a very low consumption threshold, you might reduce inequality, but you crush overall median utility. The whole system just stagnates.
So the extreme pursuit of equality through force or extreme thrift that borders on hoarding actually makes everyone worse off.
It makes the system worse off for most people, yes. Moderation isn't just a nice idea, it is the mathematical sweet spot.
The optimization point.
It is. A balanced, moderate moral approach is the only thing that leads to achieving both reduced inequality and increased median utility at the same time.
And the two morals work together, right?
They're complementary. They found they work best when the redistribution threshold times the consumption threshold is approximately 5. They need each other.
So to really find this sweet spot, the researchers calculated a balance index.
Yeah, they just defined it as utility divided by inequality. You want that number to be as high as possible.
And when they charted the results,
it formed this beautiful, clear, almost mountainous peak. And that peak happened in a very specific moderate setting for the moral parameters.
Which proves geometrically that balancing these two things, a little voluntary sharing and a little personal restraint, is what optimizes the system for everyone.
It's proof. And they also found a really strong negative correlation. The larger the Gini index for inequality, the smaller the median utility.
So mathematically, reducing inequality leads directly to higher well-being for the population.
It kind of shuts down that old argument that you need high inequality to drive innovation or prosperity. The model says the opposite.
So when we put it all together, the internal psychological scale and this external mathematical model, what's the big takeaway?
It's that we have two completely independent streams of modern academic research. One is, highly philosophical and psychological, talking about mindfulness and acceptance.
And the other is intensely technical, using physics and dynamic equations. And they converge on the exact same fundamental principle.
The pursuit of extremes, whether it's unfettered personal desire or extreme destructive over-equalization, just degrades the well-being of the system.
So flourishing, whether you're talking about an individual or a whole society, is based on an active choice toward balance and moderation.
Internally, the IPS calls that psychological skill transcending hedonism and materialism. Externally, the econophysics model confirms the mathematical necessity of a consumption moral and a redistribution moral.
It's the scientific confirmation of knowing how much is enough.
Absolutely. And this just reinforces wisdom from traditions all over the world. I mean, think of the Quran stating, those who spend neither wastefully nor stingily, but moderately in between.
Or Lao Tzu teaching centuries ago that those who know when they have enough are rich. The modern data is confirming that this richness isn't just a personal feeling, it's an actual systemic value.
And the practical challenge here, which the economists point out, isn't necessarily about waiting for more top-down laws or state solutions.
Because if the solution relies on moral parameters,
Then you need to foster that moral consensus from the grassroots level. It means moving toward community-based movements like worker co-ops or platform cooperatives, things that structurally encourage these voluntary morals from the bottom up.
It's about designing our microeconomies in a way that rewards and reinforces the very same disposition of inner peace.
So if these mathematical models are confirming that your personal restraint on creating your own transcendence of materialism actually contributes to higher societal utility and less global inequality.
The question it leaves you with is, what personal consumption threshold, what's your CTH should you set for yourself this week to better contribute to human flourishing?
It's something for you to deeply consider. It's the ultimate connection